Hello and welcome to the Business Today show. I'm Udayan Mukherjee. Over the last few decades, there's hardly been a single urban Indian family which has not been touched by the Godrej brand. When I was growing up, the locks in the house would all be Godrej. If something precious had to be put away, it was always in a Godrej safe or a Godrej cupboard. Of course, the group has gone on to include many new businesses over the years, from consumer products to electronics to real estate. But my guest today is at the helm of those iconic businesses that I spoke about. In fact, the company, Godrej Boyce, is really the original flagship and continues to be the flagship of the 125-year-old Godrej Group. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome on the Business Today show Jamshyd Godrej, Managing Director of Godrej Boyce. Jamshyd, great to have you in, and thank you for finding time today.
Thank you.
You know, I spent most of my career looking at the stock market, and I would often wonder why your companies were privately held. Why was Godrej Boyce not listed in the stock market? Because you had such iconic businesses, you had such great recall and fondness and affection from the Indian public. Why did you choose never to take the company public and do an IPO?
Well, it's a complex issue, but the main reason to go to the public is that if you need to raise finances uh, for your expansion and growth, then you would go to the public. I think we had always a strong cash flow and adequate resources for our businesses, and we never felt the need to actually go public.
That's one reason to go public. The other is to share it, I mean, your wealth and fortune with shareholders, make them participants in your growth. Capital raising is one aspect of it. Even going forward, you don't feel that your part of the businesses, Godrej Boyce and its allied businesses, could ever see an IPO?
Nobody will ever say never, but I think for the foreseeable future, I don't see that happening. But nobody can really predict exactly what should be done or can be done. So I would not count it out, but I would not say that this is something that is being planned.
What if the new generation of leaders at your group think differently? I mean, what if Nirika and Navroz told you, Dad, we want to do it differently. We want to take the companies public, mount it on a much more visible scale. Do you think that's a possibility, or do they share your views on this matter?
See, no, I don't agree with you that we want to be more public uh, can only be done through a listing in the stock market. I think there are many different ways that you could do that. So I don't necessarily buy your argument.
Fair enough. But let me talk about the group that you are at the helm of, because it has very diverse businesses. I mean, you at one hand you're looking at appliances, which is very successful, and then there is aerospace, there is electronics, there's capital goods. Do you want to keep it all under one umbrella, or do you think these diverse businesses should be separated, even demerged, and they can be run as independent and strong entities in their own right?
Yeah. No, that's a fair question. I think my view is that the strength of Godrej and Boyce is the diversity of its businesses and the complementary nature of many of the businesses. Uh, I think if you look historically, we expanded into the businesses in which we are for good historical reasons. Now whether those historical reasons hold for the future or not is a different matter. But there, I have always found that there is enormous benefit to the diversity of our businesses. So about two-thirds of our businesses are related to customers, consumers, directly or indirectly. And one-third of our businesses are essentially industrial businesses, which make things like forklift truck, equipment for the oil and gas industry, etc. Uh, a newer business in the last 30, 40 years has been aerospace and defense, etc. So I see that there is a lot of commonality in two-thirds of the businesses which are all consumer basis facing, and one-third of the businesses which are all industrial customer B2B facing. So I look at it basically as these two major buckets that we work with. And so yes, there are different businesses, but there's a lot of synergy amongst them.
No, that's a fine distinction, Jamshed, and I want to talk a little bit more about it because, the government's capex thrust has been something which has been very pronounced over the last couple of years. And we've seen the issues of inflation, COVID, etc. And consumption has gone through a few bumpy patches over the last couple of years. So keeping all this in mind, which would you say is the stronger engine of growth at Godrej and Boyce? I mean, the B2B businesses, the industry-facing businesses that you spoke about, or the B2C, the consumer-facing businesses?
Well, frankly, if you ask me, I think both, and more or less equally. Because I think if you look at penetration levels of consumer-facing industries that we are in, it's still very, very small. Whether it's home appliances, it's furniture, etc. So I don't see any major roadblock as such to increase the penetration in the consumer-facing businesses. India is a young country with greater disposable income, and we sell all over the country. And so I don't see that as a problem area at all. In fact, I see it as a big growth engine. As far as our industrial businesses are concerned, again, because exactly what you said, the greater emphasis on manufacturing, greater emphasis on investment-led growth. So, there will always be a very strong market for capital goods and for intermediaries. And even as far as defense and aerospace are concerned, till very recently, when the private sector was not being encouraged to enter into that field, as of late, as you well know, just a couple of days ago, I think the defense minister made a statement that 85% of India's purchase for defense and related items will be from Indian suppliers. So I think that both areas have enormous opportunity to grow. There is no barrier as such in terms of the market.
I want to speak specifically about Godrej Aerospace because it seems like an exciting space to be in at a time when there is finally so much of opening of doors from the government to private enterprise. Are you actually seeing it translating into orders on the ground for companies like Godrej Aerospace?
Yes, I think the interest for us, I mean, it's a mutual. The government is interested in buying more from India. The government is interested in buying more of what we do. And I think that we are interested as much in doing that. I think as long as we have a healthy relationship with the government in terms of programs, this is one business which has a very, very long gestation. So if I get an order today, it doesn't mean you can deliver tomorrow. It takes 2 to 3 years depending on the program, to gear up, build knowledge and expertise in it, and to supply. So it is a long-term business. It's a business which essentially depends on competencies, which we have, and you can only build more and more on that. And as and when the government does open up these sectors for export, I think you will see there will be more acceleration. Take satellites, for instance. ISRO has been putting satellites in space for decades. And if you see the market for satellites, it's many hundreds of times what we are doing. Our own requirement is not being met fully. So there is really no, area that will not grow. Both on aerospace and defense, I think that as the industry matures, as the industry becomes more realistic on both sides of what the industry can do, I think there will only be a very healthy opportunity and a very healthy business for the private sector.
I want to extend this question to the broader manufacturing theme, and I want you to wear your former helm of CII hat as well in this. All this excitement about India becoming a manufacturing destination, the China plus one opportunity, etc. Is there an element of hype out there, or you actually believe that India can become a successful manufacturing destination? I mean, some of our neighbors like Vietnam have done so well on the low-end manufacturing front. Do you think we could make some serious inroads over the next few years?
It's a very interesting question. It's a question that I have been grappling with on many fronts, including with CII and other organizations. I think there is a poor realization amongst various government authorities, not just at the central government level, at every level, at the state, at the local, even at the village level. There is very little realization of how complex manufacturing is. It's not like a service industry like software, where as long as you have a place for people to work from and they're well qualified, they can work from anywhere and do it. I think manufacturing, requires highly efficient factories. There's a lot of interdependency between manufacturers and suppliers. The supply chain has to work efficiently. So there is just not enough realization. My belief is that, the reason why countries like Vietnam actually moved ahead of India on the manufacturing sort of top of the mind, the only reason is because they took care of the entire entry and operational part of how industry works with local bodies, with the central governments, etc. We have still not done it. In Vietnam, when you have an industrial park, the park authorities actually take care of every type of clearance, permission, etc. that you need. So it is literally a one-stop shop, and it works very efficiently. I have my experience of that because we have been running a factory in Vietnam for 20 years, and we know that. And India has still not understood that it is the softer aspects of managing manufacturing and industrial parks, etc., that is really crucial for efficiency. And I think when we realize that, it is going to be painful, because what it means is that all government authorities, central, state, local, have to give up their power, so to speak, and designate one authority, who will actually take care of all of this on their behalf, so that the industrial organization is not running around, with getting permissions, etc. I think this is the most crucial thing about manufacturing. If we can lick this problem, you will see that there is growth, there will be an explosion in manufacturing. Also, I think during COVID, when the supply chains were badly affected, a lot of companies in India realized that, the only answer to that was you had to build more and more in India, which means that you had to support your supply chain, you had to work closely with them. And those who've done it, I think, have found that it is entirely possible, not in every case, but in most cases, to move the base to India, whether it came from China or Vietnam or Malaysia or anywhere. So it is entirely possible to do, but our mindset must be clear that, what it takes to do that.
It's a very important point, Jamshed, you raised, but I want to ask you whether all this is easier said than done, because people in positions of authority, the very bodies that you spoke about, including the bureaucracy, why would they want to give up? Because, it's not just a question of mere authority in name, but, there are financial incentives or motivations to keep the status quo as it is today.
You see, it's a very simple point. If the leadership of this country believes and wants that industry should grow well beyond the 15, 16% that manufacturing is today and has been for decades. There is no other way. So it is really a strategic decision that has to be taken and implemented. I can't say anything more than that. I think it has been demonstrated in lots of other places the way this works. And I think it is the basis for, a strong manufacturing industrial base.
Okay. Let me come to your consumer businesses, Jamshyd, for a bit, because you spoke about penetration earlier, and I want to start by asking you about Godrej Interior, because you're making very significant inroads into the branded furniture space, which hitherto has not been how Indians consume or Indian homes consume furniture. What has been your experience like, and can you take Godrej Interior even into smaller cities and make it an even bigger brand success?
Right from the beginning, our furniture has been available in almost every town of any significant size in the country. We've always had the widest reach, and I think the the point about branded versus non-branded, or what is otherwise called organized and disorganized or unorganized sector. I think that role of carpenters, the role of local industries, etc., is not going away. It's going to stay. I think that the type of customization that you can get from those aspects actually are very high, and I don't see it going away in a hurry. I think the important point here is that there is a greater realization amongst the consuming public that brands are entering the country in a significant way. They are able to differentiate, offer things that can be. See, what we found is the biggest gripe that customers have is when you let a carpenter into your house, is that they take forever. And I think what we are saying is that, look, we are giving you something maybe slightly more expensive, but it is something that you can, decide what you want and have it installed and done with in a very short time. So I think that proposition is what is appealing to people quite a bit. So you will see more and more of that happening. I think there's a realization also, especially amongst younger people, is that they want to redecorate their homes more often. They would like more conveniences, and as their incomes allow, they would want to do that. So I think, you will see greater penetration of furniture brands. But I don't agree. I don't believe that we will, be displacing the millions of carpenters in the country who do this job very effectively also. And actually, we have to learn how to work with them, make them our customers in a way.
On the appliances front, Jamshyd, how are you faring in the face of imported competition? I mean, how is Godrej Electronics or consumer electronics appliances able to deal with in terms of gaining market share from the likes of LGs and Samsungs and even the imported Chinese products?
Yeah. No, I think you rightly say that the consumer durable space for home appliances is a very competitive market. There's no doubt about it. I think we are competing with all the major home appliance manufacturers in the world. There is a room for everyone. Our approach has been to be as innovative as possible and to be different, and especially to be more sustainable and more green. For instance, when in cooling appliances, you have to use a refrigerant. Now, this traditional way of using a refrigerant was that you buy a branded refrigerant. 20 years ago, we worked with Swiss and German research organizations, and we came up with alternatives. So our refrigerant that we use today is the only really green refrigerant that there is with zero global warming potential in it. Also, it is more energy efficient. And we have capitalized on that by saying, that our range of products are extremely energy efficient. And we promoted the energy efficiency. So, like that, I think we differentiate ourselves in every way, whether it is in cooling products, in washing products, etc. So, our approach has been be as innovative as possible. Uh, in fact, just a few days ago, we launched a range of air conditioners that will guarantee that they will not leak. Because one of the big complaints of consumers is that, when it's humid, etc., there's always a water dripping and leaking, etc., that takes place. And we have devised ways to prevent that from happening. So I think we are depending on innovation to compete, and we are depending on sustainability and green technologies to compete. And that's how we will work in a very, very competitive space.
Right. I want to touch briefly, Jamshed, about what is now common knowledge, that there is a reorganization or division afoot at the Godrej Group. And on all accounts, one hears that it's being done quite amicably. Without getting into fine details, could you tell us how that process is moving and what it could be entailing?
I think, first of all, we have all agreed that we will not publicly talk about this matter. But to your point, it is being done amicably. That's about all that we can say at this time.
Would it involve untangling any kind of cross holdings between the companies or brands owned by you and your sister and Adi and Nadir on the other side?
Yeah. No, as I said, we really don't want to comment on it and keep it private. And when it's all done, you'll know about it.
Can you at least tell me by when it will all be over?
I think you probably have enough experience of other families and how long it takes. I mean, I really can't comment on that.
Fair enough. I want to ask you about succession in your own group, because your daughter and your son in an executive and non-executive capacity are already working within the group. Is there any kind of formal succession plan that you have to hand over the reins to your children?
Well, my son was deeply involved in the innovation space in the company, but he's taken a sabbatical. He's pursuing his other interests. And my niece, my sister's daughter, younger daughter, she has been working with me now for many years, and she's learning all about our businesses and what we do, how we approach brands, how we approach. She's a lawyer herself, so she works supports our legal branding. She's helping with issues like M&A, and so yeah. I mean, the next generation has to be groomed, but I mean, just to put the record straight, I mean, the entire business has always actually been run by professionals. We have very few family members who have been involved in the businesses, all our businesses. So, I mean, essentially, it is a professionally run business. Yes, there may be a family member at the head as a chairman, or so that's about it. But really, I strongly value the professional management of the organization.
Jamshed, it's been great talking to you today, and thank you very much for your time, and wish you all the best in the years to come. Thank you for stopping by today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your talking with me.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.